The goal of this chapter is to become familiar with lists and basic list management techniques. Lists are special databases in QuickBooks that organize information about the people and businesses you buy things from, your customers, the products and services you sell, and more. The most important thing to remember about lists is that they help you save time in several ways. They store information about the people and businesses you work with, so you can record transactions more quickly. They organize your reports, so you can track sales and purchases very easily. And they help you find transactions that you've previously entered. Also, they let you track who owes you money and who you owe money to. Throughout this chapter, you'll learn about the benefit of using lists and how to customize them to best fit your business. First, you need to learn about the two types of QuickBooks lists. There is the names list, and there are other lists. After that, you'll discover how names lists help you organize the people and businesses you work with. Like most things in life, lists do have rules that you should abide by. You'll learn about those rules and how you can work around them. Finally, you'll learn to create and customize lists by adding entries, editing existing entries, and deleting and even merging other entries. Next, you'll get an overview of what lists are and the different types of lists in QuickBooks Online. Lists come in two varieties: names lists and other lists. Let's talk about the differences and similarities between these types of lists. Names lists help you organize the names of your customers, vendors, and employees. Customers are people and businesses that pay you for your products and services. You might call these people clients, guests, tenants, or even donors, but in QuickBooks they're all customers. Not every business needs to track their customers, but if you want to track how much someone owes you, or you want to see how much someone has already paid you over time, then you will need to set them up on the customers list. Vendors are the people and businesses that you pay for their products and services. You might call these people suppliers or even service providers, but again, in QuickBooks, they're all called vendors. If the owner of your business ever needs to put money into or take money out of the business, you might even set them up as a vendor. Vendors are important if you need to track how much you have paid to specific people or businesses over time, and if you want to track how much you owe in unpaid bills. One more point. Vendors are absolutely necessary if you plan to file 1099s. If you pay a contractor and need to send them a 1099, they also need to be on the vendors list for QuickBooks to be able to calculate those payments on their 1099. Employees are your regular W-2 employees. The employees list lets you track their personal and tax details, as well as many other things like compensation, deductions, and other necessary payroll information. If the owner is paid like a regular employee, they can also be set up on the employees list. All three of these lists are names lists, and they have special rules that you'll learn about here in just a little bit. Names lists are found in special centers that are designed to help you work in QuickBooks on a day-to-day basis. Over the next few topics, you'll learn about these centers and how they help you organize information and work with the people that are most important to your business. All of the lists that are not names lists are other lists. Some examples include the class list, and that lets you divide your business into departments or funds. There's also the products and services list, which helps you organize information about the things that you sell or the services you provide to your customer. There's the chart of accounts, which is used to categorize all of your financial transactions. Other lists are a little bit more simple or basic than the names lists. They don't have special centers designed for everyday use, but that's okay, because you don't normally interact with other lists on a day-to-day basis. Regardless of their type, most lists work in the same way. But we will point out when you need to do something different in a names list versus an other list.
To get the customers list, move your cursor over Invoicing or Sales and click Customers. When you first open the customers list, QuickBooks displays information about all your customers. But this list can get pretty long, and sometimes you only want to see the customers that owe you money or have paid you recently. That's why the customers list has the money bar. These buttons act as filters to make the customers list easier to read. Click the Open Invoices button, and QuickBooks only shows you customers with open invoices. Click Overdue, and QuickBooks only shows you customers that are overdue on their invoices. Just click the same button again to see your full list of customers. By default, QuickBooks lists your customers in alphabetical order. But you can also sort customers by their balance. Click the Open Balance header. Now QuickBooks sorts customers by how much they owe you. Click the Customer column header to go back to alphabetical sorting. All these techniques help you find customers, but the fastest way to find a single customer is in the search field. Just enter part or all of a customer's name and press Enter. Erase the customer's name and press Enter to clear the search. QuickBooks gives you some basic information about each customer here on the customers list, but you can click a customer's name to see much more information. At the top of Customer screen, you'll see contact information and their balance, and at the bottom, you'll see a list of transactions with that customer. In the next topic, you'll learn how to customize the customers list. Right now, the customers list gives us each customer's name, phone number, and accounts receivable balance. But you do have some customization options for the information QuickBooks presents on the list. To see your options, click the gear icon. Just check the columns you want to see on the list, and click the gear again to close the menu. Now the customers list gives you even more information. At any time, you can print or export the customers list to Excel, and the same customizations transfer to the printout. There's one more customization you can make to the list, but you'll only see the option when you click on a customer's name. Note that when you're looking at a customer's details, you won't see a list of other customers anymore. But you can fix that. Click the small menu icon. And now you can see your other customers and their balances. You can even click a customer's name to see their information on the right. In the next topic, you learn how the customers list helps you find and record new transactions. One of the key advantages to using customers is that it helps you find and record transactions. You've already seen that when you click a customer's name, you'll see their transactions on this screen. But let's go back to the customers list to see more options. The customers list has been designed to help you work on a day-to-day basis. And one of the ways it does that is by making it easier for you to create new transactions from the Action column. Just click the drop-down arrow for the customer you want to create a transaction for, and choose what you want to record. When you do record a sales transaction from this menu, or from the New button, and enter the customer's name, note that their email, address, and terms are automatically entered. This saves you a ton of time and is one of the key benefits of using customers. The customers list is designed to help you find information on your customers, but it still relies on you to accurately record and maintain that information. To get to the vendors list, move your cursor over Expenses and click Vendors. When you first open the vendors list, QuickBooks displays information about all your vendors. But this list can get pretty long, and sometimes you only want to see the vendors that you owe money to or have open purchase orders with. That's why the vendors list has the money bar. These buttons act as filters to make the vendors list easier to read. Click the Open Bills button, and QuickBooks only shows you vendors you owe money to. Click Overdue, and QuickBooks only shows you vendors you're overdue with. Just click the same button again to see your full list of vendors. By default, QuickBooks lists your vendors in alphabetical order. But you can also sort vendors by your balance with them. Click the Open Balance header, and click it again. Now QuickBooks sorts vendors by how much you owe them. Click the Vendors column header to go back to alphabetical sorting. All these techniques help you find vendors, but the fastest way to find a single vendor is the search field. Just enter part or all of a vendor's name and press Enter. Erase the vendor's name and press Enter to clear the search. QuickBooks gives you some basic information about each vendor here on the vendors list, but you can click a vendor's name to see much more information. At the top of Vendor Screen, you'll see contact information and your balance with them. And at the bottom, you'll see a list of transactions with that vendor. In the next topic, you'll learn how to customize the vendors list. Right now, the vendors list gives us each vendor's name, phone number, email address, and our accounts payable balance with them. But you do have some customization options for the information QuickBooks presents on the list. To see your options, click the gear icon. Just check the columns you want to see on the list, and click the gear again to close the menu. Now the vendors list gives you even more information. At any time, you can print or export the vendors list to Excel, and the same customizations transfer to the printout. There's one more customization you can make to the list, but you'll only see the option when you click on a vendor's name. Note that when you're looking at a vendor's details, you won't see a list of other vendors anymore, but you can fix that. Click the small hamburger menu icon, and now you see your other vendors and your balances with them. You can even click a vendor's name to see their information on the right. In the next topic, you learn how the vendors list helps you find and record new transactions. One of the key advantages to using vendors is that it helps you find and record transactions. You've already seen that when you click a vendor's name, you'll see their transactions on this screen. But let's go back to the vendors list to see more options. The vendors list has been designed to help you work on a day-to-day basis. And one of the ways it does that is by making it easier for you to create new transactions from the Action column. Just click the drop-down arrow for the vendor you want to create a transaction for, and choose what you want to record. Note that not all these options are transactions. You'll learn more about these other options later. When you do record a money out transaction from this menu, or from the New button, and enter the vendor's name, note that their address and email are automatically entered. This saves you a ton of time and is one of the key benefits of using vendors. The vendors list is designed to help you find information on your vendors, but it still relies on you to accurately record and maintain that information. There are two methods for adding something to a list, and you can use either method, regardless of the list. If you know that you'll need to use something in the future, like a new vendor, click the New button at the top right. Then enter information about the new vendor, customer, or any other list entry. This same method can be used on other lists, such as the chart of accounts. Note that the New button is at the top right on every list. Entering a list entry before you actually use it on a transaction does have some advantages. After all, everything you enter for a vendor or customer will be used later when you create transactions for that vendor or customer, which makes recording transactions faster and more accurate. But you can also create new list entries while recording a new transaction. Our company's office is so hungry that we're splurging and buying a pizza. Of course, they'll have to split it between 10 people. When the pizza arrives at the office, are we going to open QuickBooks, look at the vendor list, enter a new vendor with all of their contact information, and then start recording the transaction? Of course not. The easiest thing to do is just enter the vendor's name. Press Tab, choose what list we want them to appear on, and click Save. Now Pizza Dallas is a vendor. As a business, we want to track how much we spend on meals for employees, but we don't currently have an expense account for that. So we'll just type Meals for Employees. Press Tab. And now QuickBooks knows that we want to set up a new account on the chart of accounts. You'll learn more about setting up accounts later in the Financial Statements chapter. For now, we'll just select Expense as the account type, and Other Business Expenses as the detail type. Leave the name as Meals for Employees. Then save and close. Now just record the amount we spent on the pizza, and save and close. Now we can see that Pizza Dallas was added to the vendors list. And on the chart of accounts, Meals for Employees appears in the Expenses section. However you choose to add list entries, you might find yourself needing to edit them later. You learn about that next. Let's add some information for the vendor we added earlier. Click the vendor's name, and then Edit. The pizza was delicious, so we always want to have their phone number and website address on file. Now click Save. Click Vendor Details to see their updated contact information. Or to make things even easier, just look at their number from the vendors list. Now we're ready to order more delicious pizza. This method works for editing entries on a names list, but things are a little different on other lists, like the chart of accounts. To edit something on an other list, find what you want to edit and click the drop-down arrow in the Action column. Then select Edit. Make any changes and click Save and Close. Note that there are some parts of list entries that cannot be changed, like inventory items cannot be changed to a different type of item, but those situations are rare. You've learned how to add and edit list entries, but what if you need to delete one? You learn that next.
Like most things in life, there are rules involved with list entries in QuickBooks. The first rule is that most lists can have as many entries as you want, but you are occasionally limited on how many items you can track on a list, based on the list and your subscription level. For example, Simple Start, Essentials, and Plus, you can have up to 250 accounts on the chart of accounts. But with QuickBooks Online Advanced, you can have as many accounts as you want. The second rule is that you can't move entries from one list to another. So if you've set up an account on the chart of accounts, there's no way to change it into a product and service. Or if you've set up an employee, there's no way to move that over to the vendors list. The workaround for this rule is to make every entry inactive on its original list and then recreate it on the new list. This last rule is that you can't have two entries on the same list with the same name. Also, names must be unique across all names lists. So if you have a customer named Amy's Bird Sanctuary, you can't set up a vendor that's also named Amy's Bird Sanctuary. Luckily, there is a little workaround for this. The name that must be unique across all names list is the display name as. This is a unique name that you use to keep track of a customer, vendor, or employee, and it is not something that the customer, the vendor, or the employee will ever see. So if you're setting up a vendor that is already on your customers list, just add a -v at the end of the name. Then, in the company name field, enter the company's actual name. Be sure to also uncheck the box for Print on Check As. Then remove the -v. QuickBooks will use the company name and the Print on Check As in all official communications with that vendor or customer. This workaround is great because the customer's record and the vendor's record have different entries for display name as. In fact, some businesses carry this even further because the customer, the vendor, and the employee never see the display name as field. Many businesses use it to track customer numbers or vendor numbers. As long as you follow these rules and workarounds, lists can effectively help you keep track of all of your company's information.
One of our customers, Cool Cars, has gone out of business, so we don't need them on our customers list anymore. For list entries that have $0 balances, like this customer, removing them is easy. Just click the drop-down arrow in the Action column and select Make Inactive. The entry disappears from the list, so it's no longer taking up any space here, and it will no longer appear on the list of available customers when filling out an invoice or sales receipt. It's important to note that QuickBooks keeps all of your historical transactions with the deleted customer or vendor. Just after making them inactive, we get a call from Cool Cars that they got a loan to keep them afloat, and they want to order something from us again. Do we have to recreate that from scratch? No. All we have to do is click the gear icon and choose to include inactive. Now we can see cool cars again, but we still can't use them until we click Make Active. This process works the same way for other lists. There is an account named Mortgage Payable. We've never used this account and never will. It has a $0 balance, so deleting it is easy. Just click the Action drop-down arrow and select Make Inactive. The entry disappears from the list, so it's no longer taking up any space here, and it will also no longer appear on the list of available accounts. If you ever want to bring it back, you can use the same method shown earlier on the customers list. This process works fine for list entries with $0 balances, but it's a little trickier if the entry does have a balance. Let's make 2 more list entries inactive. First, let's look at a customer of ours named Bill's Windsurf Shop. Bill's Windsurf Shop has a balance, which means they owe us money. But we know that they're not going to pay this balance, and we'd rather just remove them from this list. The problem is that if you click the Action drop-down arrow, there's no option to make them inactive. So does this mean you can't make them inactive? Not quite. QuickBooks just wants to make it a little harder because you should be very careful about making list entries inactive when they have a non-zero balance. First, click the customer's name and then select Edit. Now we can make this customer inactive with the Make Inactive button. Before we do this, let's take a look at Bill's Windsurf Shop's transactions. This customer has an outstanding invoice for $150. The big question is, when we make the customer inactive, what happens to this balance? Let's find out. Click Edit again, and then Make Inactive. QuickBooks tells us the customer has a non-zero balance, which is a fancy way of saying that they have a balance. Making this customer inactive will cause an adjusting transaction to be created. Is this okay? Let's click Yes and find out what happens. Now we can see that QuickBooks actually created 2 new transactions. The first is what's called a credit memo. A credit memo is basically the opposite of an invoice. Invoices usually increase your income, and credit memos do the exact opposite. So essentially, QuickBooks creates a transaction that offsets the original invoice by the same amount. Then it links these 2 transactions together with a transaction called a payment. Now, we didn't actually receive a payment. That's just how QuickBooks closes the invoice and the credit memo, by linking them together. Now, making accounts with balances inactive is a little different on the chart of accounts. Bildem has a small business loan. The business's owner has decided it would be a lot better if they just didn't have to pay that loan. So they're just going to delete it. They click the Actions drop-down arrow and choose Make Inactive. QuickBooks tells them that this account has a non-zero balance. Again, a fancy way of saying that it has a balance. Deleting this account will cause an adjusting transaction to be created. Is this okay? In reality, this is probably not okay. In general, if you want to get rid of an account that has a balance, you should move the balance to another account. If you don't know which account to move it over to, ask your accountant. This business's owner just can't stop thinking about how much money they'll save by not paying this loan though. So they choose yes. QuickBooks definitely got rid of the account. But let's take a look at the journal entry it created to remove the balance. QuickBooks debited the small business loan and moved the balance into opening balance equity. This is usually not a good thing to do, but it is what QuickBooks does if you make an account with a balance inactive. List entries with balances can be made inactive and deleted, but be very careful when doing so. The last list technique is called merging. Let's demonstrate this on the vendors list. The name of your phone company is Dallas Bell. While you are on vacation, someone entered a bill from the same company, but entered a second vendor named D. Bell. The next time you went on vacation, someone else entered a check to the same company, but added a third name, Dallas Phone Company. You should stop going on vacation. Fortunately, you can merge them into one account. First, click the name of the entry you want to get rid of. Let's get rid of D. Bell, then click Edit. Change the display name so that it matches the entry you want to merge it with. In this case, Dallas Bell. Now click Save. QuickBooks tells you the name is already being used. Would you like to merge these two? The answer is yes. QuickBooks merges all of the transactions from D. Bell and moves them to Dallas Bell, and you get to keep the Dallas Bell contact information. The same technique works on other lists, like the customers list and the chart of accounts. For example, here are two similar income accounts, sales of product and sales of product income. These two accounts represent the same thing, so let's merge them. Find the one that you want to get rid of and click the Actions drop-down arrow. Then Edit. Change the name of the account to what you want to merge it with, and then click Save and Close. QuickBooks asks again if you really want to merge the two of them. The answer is yes. QuickBooks removes the unwanted account and merges all of the historical transactions with the account you kept. It's important to note that this process only works when merging two accounts that are of the same type. So you could merge two income accounts or two bank accounts, but you could not merge a bank account with a liability account.